The old saying goes that a red sky at night is a sailor's delight, while a red sky in the morning is a sailor's warning. We're greeted to such a sight in the early hours of November 9th, 2024. Today, we'll be spending the day at Dolton Junction, another one of Chicago's well-known railfan hotspots. Within 2 minutes of arriving, the action is already well underway as CSX train M642 shoves back into Bar Yard with their impressive train of traffic from the Indianapolis Metro. Green lights for an eastbound on the Indiana Harbor Belt immediately follow, and the fun can begin. The signal is for Norfolk Southern Train 34J, departing the IHB's Blue Island Yard and beginning their near 100-mile journey to Elkhart, Indiana. You may recall this train from our visit to Pine Junction. Contrary to that 22-car example, today's train is over 100, a majority of which originated on the Iowa Interstate Railroad and is destined for various points east across the Norfolk Southern system. We'll see plenty of other interesting trains as we experience true blue-collar railroading and spend a day at Dolton Junction. Besides rampant political corruption, one thing the village of Dolton, Illinois has in excess are railroads. While not boasting the traffic levels of a place like Pine Junction, Dolton provides a better example of Chicago-exclusive terminal railroading. From the parking lot of the Dolton Police Station, we get an up-close and personal look at the Indiana Harbor Belt's main line. Just west of us is the railroad's massive classification yard at Blue Island, and the line runs east to the railroad's Gibson, Burnham, and Michigan Avenue yards in Indiana, as well as eastern connections with railroads such as the Norfolk Southern. Immediately north of the IHB and behind it from the vantage point of this video is CSX's arterial bar subdivision of former B&O CT fame. The railroad's namesake Bar Yard isn't too far west of here, and the line is the railroad's eastward main out of the Chicago Metro. Finally, the Union Pacific's former Missouri Pacific Villa Grove subdivision crosses both lines at grade to the immediate west. The railroad's Yard Center terminal is just south of us, and as we'll see, most Union Pacific trains use the IHB west of here to access their former Chicago and Northwestern terminal at Proviso. The line is also shared with CSX for their own trains running to points southeast of Chicago. Overhead, but much further west, is the Canadian National's former Illinois Central Chicago subdivision. If you look closely at this slightly disorienting map, you'll see that connections exist between just about every line. Legal access is plentiful here. Park in the lot of either the village police department or library and watch trains to your heart's content. While some parts of Dolton don't fit the textbook definition of safe, safety has never been a personal concern here, as the police department is located directly south of here, and police officers driving in and out make regular appearances. Photographers desiring a picture-perfect sunny frame may want to steer clear, as this location is quite congested and tight with power lines and surrounding urban infrastructure. We'll head back trackside from this point, but make sure to refer to this map if you get lost in the spaghetti of railroad lines through here. A sleepy Dalton is just beginning to wake up on this chilly Saturday as a less than camera-friendly partly cloudy sky is quickly driving the vibrant red sunrise out. The railroads are quiet for a brief moment, but the train action will soon become non-stop for the next half hour. Kicking the parade off is Union Pacific Local YYC-CN, a nightly transfer from the railroad's yard center to the former Illinois Central's Markham Yard. Two SD40-2s are leading this morning's return, which will use a very short stretch of IHB rails to return home. The transfer continues its slow creep into yard center as eastbound tonnage moves on the CSX. Like parts of the 34J we saw earlier, this unit ethanol train came off of the Iowa Interstate early yesterday morning and is now bound for Baltimore. East of the road crossing, we get a rare, clear view of both the head end and rear of the train as it accelerates east. A stopped westbound stack train for Bedford Park can now resume their trip as soon as the ethanol train clears up. We'll soon see that the CSX dispatcher has very tightly packed trains together this morning. Piggyback service is a rare sight to see in 2024, but this morning's IO10 has more than a fair share of trailers on flat cars. Movement on the CSX continues as another Union Pacific train heads for Yard Center. This Arkansas-bound manifest began life in Proviso Yard late last night and has used trackage rights over the IHB to access the MOPAC here at Dolton. The train will make some pickups at Yard Center before continuing their trip south. Amidst all the rail action, another signal has lit up for a train to enter the IHB's Blue Island Yard. The signal is for IHB train BP9, today led by the IHB 4010, an exquisitely rare EMD GP40P-2. The BP9 job runs a nightly turn out of Blue Island to feed the railroad's Burnham Yard east of here near the Indiana state line. The train is comprised entirely of local industry traffic as well as a small amount of interchange off the South Shore Freight. If you follow the channel for any decent amount of time, the next train will be no stranger. Loaded bottles for Riverdale are swinging off of the IHB and onto the CSX for the final leg of their run to the steel plant. Six loaded ladles are bound for the plant this morning and are led by GP38-2 NS number 5337, which wears an attractive Operation Lifesaver variation of the NS paint scheme. Auto traffic off the BNSF is on the move in the form of the Gibson Yard-based GP11 transfer job. A little past 8, we're greeted with the only instance of full sun we'll be seeing today. Not long after, stacks from New Jersey move west behind an unrebuilt AC-44 CW. A close look east reveals more pigs on the wing, certainly a sight for sore eyes. As the I-003 clears, train M326 departs Bar Yard for Grand Rapids. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the excessive amount of vehicular traffic running the down gates. Trailing on today's M326 is CSX 7868, which at the time of recording this in November 2024 was the last active Dash 840 CW on the CSX roster. We'll see some of the 7800 series dispositions later on in the video. IHB transfer job GA3 is on the move west with auto racks from Gibson Yard. The Indiana Harbor Belt's Gibson Yard in Hammond, Indiana is one of the largest rail yards in the country that switches one commodity exclusively. Every day, hundreds of auto racks move in and out of the yard, with all 6 U.S. Class I railroads running traffic in and out of the yard. These Gibson transfer crews deliver fully assembled auto trains to both the BNSF and Union Pacific, with this train bound for interchange with the BNSF near McCook, Illinois. Another Gibson transfer job, the GA1, is light engine out of Blue Island with power that will be serviced at the railroad's roundhouse just east of Gibson Yard. The telltale horn of a P-42DC leads no question as to our next railroad. Amtrak's Cardinal uses the Villa Grove sub on the last leg of their journey to Chicago. Note the separate 4-car consist on the head end with equipment that is returning from servicing at the railroad's Beech Grove shops near Indianapolis. More westbound racks trundle down the IHB as we get a very distant look at CN train M337 heading north of the former Illinois Central. Selkirk-bound traffic on the CSX is next, departing Bar Yard. It just wouldn't be fair to exclude the little bit of South Shore Steel traffic mixed into the train this morning. And speaking of steel traffic, here comes another steel train. IHP Job 518 has a healthy string of empty coil cars off the Union Pacific bound for the steel plant at Riverdale. You may remember this train from both my IHB and bottle train videos. While bottle trains provide daily service to the mill, the IHB only makes a trip 3 times weekly to deliver empties and pull finished steel. The IHB 54 will be used as a shoving platform when the train makes its way onto the CSX. We see another train from my Pine Junction video. CSX Y310 has made it out of Kirk Yard with working time today, but are down to their final 15 minutes to try and get their train into Bar Yard. With the Y310 out of the way, the 518 can begin their shove onto the CSX and over to Riverdale. What goes in must come out. With the IHB into the plant, empty bottles can now depart to be reloaded at Indiana Harbor. The train won't get too far east of here as they'll have to wait on the connection for IHB BA2, making its way toward us from Michigan Avenue Yard. Within 5 minutes, we'd become totally shrouded in Southside gloom. BA2 is one of 2 daily turns between the IHB's yards at Blue Island and Michigan Avenue. Today's first trip back to Blue is a healthy 89 cars of Northwest Indiana industry traffic. More intermodal traffic heads east on the CSX. By the early afternoon, rail traffic was rather quickly slowing down as the skies continued to darken. In any regard, Union Pacific Local IYCCN is next, coming down the Hylon connection and returning to Yard Center. Like the transfer we saw early this morning, this train also works a turn between Yard Center and Markham Yard, though this one is exclusively intermodal traffic between the two ramps. Normally, the Chicago-Fort Wayne and Eastern Railroad would make their daily appearance on IHB rails headed for Blue Island Yard. As luck would have it, the railroad wouldn't run the train until after dark today. We'll take a quick break and head over to Ivanhoe Junction on the far east end of the IHB to take a look at a CF&E that is very, very different than our last look a little over a year ago. As alluded to earlier today, the CF&E is the answer to the disposition of several 7800 Series -8s. Since our last look at the railroad in fall of 2023, all 6-axle EMDs have since been replaced by a fleet of 8 of these -840 CWs. The 4035 is the former CSX 7873, while the 7865 is still patched out with its CSX road number. Operationally, the railroad continues to operate a daily manifest between Fort Wayne and the IHB, consisting of large amounts of structural steel and empty scrap gondolas from Steel Dynamics in Columbia City, as well as auto traffic from General Motors plant in Fort Wayne. Another day at Ivanhoe Junction finds an eastbound manifest departing IHB rails for Fort Wayne, led by CFE 4037. The 4037 is the former CSX 7826, while the trailer, 4038, wore the number 7822. Ivanhoe Junction is the crossing between the IHB's Far East End and Canadian National's former EJ&E Matson subdivision. The old J Main will be the subject of an up-and-coming project to the channel. Stay tuned. Back to Dolton, coming off the close connector between the Villa Grove and IHB is CN train E271, which used trackage rights up the Union Pacific to access IHB rails. This train began life in Michigan and is now on the remaining few miles of their trip to the IHB's Gibson Yard. While the E271 was passing, CSX train M501 began building their train out of Bar Yard and is now departing. This train will run the UP Villegrove sub south with the eventual destination of Nashville, Tennessee. Another unrebuilt AC-44 leader is next on eastbound stack train I-136. A monstrous M327 from Grand Rapids is approaching us next. It will be a long and painful process of yarding this train at Bar, with the crossing here being blocked for almost a half hour. In the distance, two IHB GP38-2s have pulled east out of Blue Island to switch yard leads. Perhaps we should have heeded to the red sky this morning, as a steady rain that will slowly grow heavier is beginning to fall on CSX train M356 getting underway out of Bar Yard. Following the M356 out is IHB 518, returning with loads from the Riverdale Steel Plant. The train begins their shove back to Blue Island. With the rain getting heavier, this would be the last train of the day. While not boasting the enormous traffic levels of places like Pine Junction, Dolton is still a great place for people who love slower-paced short-line, local, and industrial railroad action, and it will always be one of my favorite hotspots. I hope you've enjoyed this second installment of Hotspots, and as always, thanks for watching.